Hello, I'm Pat here today. Kind of a bit of a general Toonami video, I suppose. So, as you might know, later today will be the first viewing, I suppose, of Toonami Rewind on Cartoon Network. So, if you've been paying attention to Cartoon Network over the past year or so, you might realize that the first part of, I guess, Adult Swim now, technically, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., is a block called Checkered Past. Checkered Past is let's take the Cartoon Network shows from like the late 90s, early 2000s people like, and just put them on air. So, like Dexter's Laboratory, Ed, Ned, and Eddie, Grim Adventures of Billy Mandy, stuff like that. Cow and Chicken, I think's appeared quite a bit too. And it early on was, of course, critically acclaimed because a lot of people in like the cartoon sphere of things really, really love those shows, really, really love like that era of Cartoon Network because for most of them, myself included, we grew up with them. That was Cartoon Network. I was actually a little more later than that. Like I almost put those in the same category as my nostalgia of something like Foster's Home or hell, even Hi Hi Puffy Ami Uni, which might explain why I ended up getting really big into anime later on. But still, I mean, and we people at the Warner's Brothers Discovery thought, hey, people generally like this checkered past thing. A lot of people stopped mailing death threats to David Zaslav, so it would be a good idea. What if we did the same thing but for Toonami? So on Friday afternoons from 5 to 7 p.m. now, we will have Toonami Rewind, which is the same concept but for Toonami, as Toonami currently generally airs, or at least well, kind of weird with some of the reruns being older anime, but like current anime, like anime or animated TV shows that are like popular now. But what if we did ones that used to be popular that we apparently have rights to air? So, as you see in this image, one of those anime is the original Sailor Moon from the 1990s. And as a note, it will be the Viz dub of that. A little bit more on that in a minute, actually. It'll be 2 episodes of Dragon Ball Z Kai, which I get it's retro technically, but I mean, isn't it's still currently airing on Toonami, isn't it? Or at least very recently, it was still airing reruns on Toonami, so it's not like, you're really not digging deep for that one. That's I guess you could say, well, Dragon Ball is always gonna sell. People always wanna watch Dragon Ball. That's always gonna have its audience. Which also explains the next pick being Naruto, not Shippuden, the OG Naruto, the one that I have very distinct memories. That was my like era of Toonami watching. Was like late like 2006 to 2008. Like I probably told you the story of sixth grade. Elementary school, I was aware of anime. I generally liked some anime. Like I was the type of kid that was like really into Yu-Gi-Oh back then. Like Duel Monsters, Yu-Gi-Oh GX. So I guess I like that still probably put me more in the know of anime than the average person back then. Because again, a lot of people do not understand, like the younger people do not understand. Anime has never always been like as mainstream as it is now. Like if you ask someone in their 20s what My Hero Academia is, at the very least they have an idea or they can picture Deku, like stuff like that. That wasn't the case in like 2006. But the Naruto came out, it was put on Toonami, and by sixth grade, which I entered in like 2008, every single kid Naruto ran everywhere. It was insane. Even the star basketball player, the star center, who was like 6'9", was into Naruto. And that was such an alien idea to me at the time, because the people who were into anime back then kind of hit it because it was seen as like lame or passe or you're one of the weird kids. But all of a sudden with Naruto, boom, everyone's Naruto running everywhere. Everyone's got their arms back, they're running full speed right into Area 51, and that's just how things were back then. And then like a year or two later, when like Tanami kind of, I don't like when Tanami first shut down, it was kind of out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden one day I turned it Saturday night and Naruto wasn't airing anymore. I can't remember exactly which episode of Naruto they stopped at. It was like after the whole thing where Sasuke defected and everyone was going like towards like the village hidden in the sound to find him. And I distinctly remember, I don't think this was the last episodes. It was the one where Hinata was like trapped by the hornets and she had to figure her way out. I'm getting way off topic here. This is talking about Toonami Rewind. I'm going way into depth about Naruto, which I guess kind of fits because it will be part of this opening block. And much like Checkered Past, where they started rotating in and out shows, wouldn't be surprised if maybe a few weeks from now we get thrown. Honestly, knowing them, they'll just throw in Dragon Ball Super instead of Kai or something like that. The thing with how serialized all these shows are, it's gonna be hard to really make an argument of like stopping it mid arc and then putting in a new show. Like compared to like the Checkered Past shows, Dexter's Lab doesn't really have an overarching plot. Billy and Mandy doesn't really have an overarching plot. Cow and Chicken definitely doesn't have an overarching plot. So you can really air them any order. You can take them off the air, put them back on the air, and no one's really going to notice anything. But I mean, all the Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Kai, you might be Dragon Ball Z Kai, you might be able to get away with, but definitely Naruto, considering at least when you start getting closer to the tuning exams, every episode's canon for a while, you know. And Sailor Moon definitely has its own general plot arc. It's kind of episodic, I suppose. I guess really early on. I vaguely remember watching the 90s Sailor Moon, so I'm not like 100% sure on that. Again, my anime growing up with, like I said, was like Naruto, you know? And if it was the quote unquote obscure anime, it would be something like Yu Yu Hakusho, which sounds crazy, but back in the 2000s, most people didn't know what Yu Yu Hakusho was. It was like retrospectively when people started getting anime in 2010s, like, oh, look at this old anime. Look at this old anime. This Yusuke kid looks fucking cool. That's kind of how Yu Yu Hakusho really became big. And again, it'll be interesting, you know. And the only thing I could see backfiring about this is the fact that Checkered Past, all the shows are in a general time frame from like 96 to like 2003. It's like a 7-year span. Meanwhile, you have Dragon Ball Z Kai, which is 2010s, Naruto late 2000s, and then Sailor Moon, which I think the original episodes of this aired in like the early 90s in Japan, and I think later in the 90s it kind of became known in the US. Like I said, in the 90s, if you knew anime, your view of it would either be Goku or Sailor Moon. Like that was the image you got of anime. Unless you're one of those people that figured out how to get them naughty tapes with them octopuses, you know. You catch my drift, you know. Those were reviews of anime. Unless you were able to find a VHS copy of Alien from the Darkness or something, I guess, you know. So I guess your view of anime would be a little different then. But again, interesting to see how this turns out. Wicker Pass has done fairly well, as I guess it is. I think it is branded as a part of Adult Swim, so this will also be branded as a part of Adult Swim. Kind of crazy. Adult Swim starts at 5 p.m. now. Like it's almost 5 p.m. now as I'm recording this, and it's just bright sun outside. I mean, just that's just how things are. Cartoon Network, no one's watching it, but Adult Swim does have its audience. And Toonami still has its audience, and we'll see if that translates to Friday at 5 p.m. instead of Saturday at midnight. It'll be interesting to see how things turn out. I actually waited to make this video because I kind of want to bundle this with talking about this last week's ratings. But again, because of Memorial Day and how everything gets pushed back because of it, as of me making this video, those numbers aren't out yet. But when those numbers are out, I'll try to shoot up a video about that. Especially, I really want to talk about that 1 hour premiere of My Adventures of Superman and analyze its ratings. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But again, more Toonami content coming at you. I know it's been a little while, but I've been busy. Sometimes your fluffy wuffy kitty cat's got business to do, and I took care of it. So without further ado, I am Super Orange Cat, and that is all.